Last night happened. And yes, the draw is fine. Yes, the second leg is at the Emirates. Yes, we should be confident. But that is not what is keeping me up. What is keeping me up is the fact that the man Arsenal desperately want to sign this summer walked up to that penalty spot, looked straight down the barrel and buried it. Cool as you like. 1-1. And the whole time I am watching him, I am thinking, that is exactly the problem. That composure, that ability to show up when everything is on the line. That is what Arsenal have been missing, and everyone at that club knows it. Julian Alvarez is not just a target, he is literally the obstacle. On the pitch and in the transfer window simultaneously. And that dynamic is unlike anything I have seen in football in a long time. Start with what Atletico have actually said. Their position is clear. They do not want to sell. Not for £130 million, not for more. Not even if Alvarez knocks on Simeone's door and says he wants to leave. Most people hear that and say, okay, move on. I do not think it is that simple. Atletico paid £82 million for Alvarez less than 2 years ago. He has since scored 48 goals in 104 games. Last night, he scored his 25th Champions League goal in his 41st appearance. The fastest any South American in history has reached that number. So when they say 130 million, that is not a negotiating position. That is a statement of value. But here is the detail everyone is glossing over. Simeone went to a press conference the night before a Champions League semi-final and publicly confirmed Arsenal's interest. He did not shut it down. He said, "It is completely normal that a player like Alvarez is wanted by Arsenal, by PSG, by Barcelona. He is an extraordinary player." Managers do not say things like that by accident, especially Simeone. Publicly acknowledging transfer interest in your own player 2 days before a massive game is a signal. It might be a negotiating signal. It might be a signal that even Atletico know this has a shelf life, but it is a signal. And then, on the same day, Mikel Arteta personally called Julian Alvarez. The manager picked up the phone. Not a scout, not an intermediary. Arteta himself. When does he do that? He is not a manager who chases players through the press. He is private, calculated, works quietly. For him to personally call Alvarez tells me this pursuit is at a different level than anything we have seen from Arsenal in the transfer market for a long time. Now the player himself, because this is what gets lost in all the noise about fees. Alvarez is not a classic 9. He never has been. He is a hybrid forward. Hard now after 2 years under Simeone, more direct, runs channels, fights for second balls, but still with everything he had at City. The movement, the awareness, the ability to drop into pockets and create. That is exactly what Arteta has been building toward. Think about how Arsenal play. Arteta wants his striker to press, to link in transitions, to create for others, not just finish. Alvarez can finish. 18 goals this season is not nothing. But in the biggest games, against the most organised defences, he disappears. And I say that as someone who genuinely wanted it to work. Arteta prefers Havertz in the biggest games. That tells you everything. When the margin for error is smallest, he goes to Havertz. More fluid, more intelligent off the ball, more connected to the midfield. But Havertz is not a natural 9. He is making it work. It is not the ideal solution. That gap between what Arsenal have and what they actually need, that is exactly where Alvarez fits. Last night proved it. He almost scored from the free kick. Then, when the penalty came, no hesitation, no nerves, just execution. Straight down the middle. Done. That is a player built for big occasions. Can Arsenal actually sign him? Here is the situation honestly. Atletico will not sell. Alvarez's camp say his preference, if he moves, is Barcelona, and Atletico's valuation is a record fee for Arsenal. Barcelona, let me be brief. They are in financial chaos as always. They want Alvarez, of course they do. But can they fund a £130 million transfer while managing their salary cap? I genuinely do not think so. And if Barcelona cannot fund it, Alvarez's preference for them becomes irrelevant. Preference means nothing without the money. So it narrows to Arsenal and PSG, two clubs that can write the cheque. But Atletico will not sell. And here is where I push back on the move-on narrative. What happens if Arsenal knock Atletico out on Tuesday? Atletico's season ends. Their biggest prize, the chance to win the Champions League for the first time in their history, is gone. Alvarez's contract situation becomes the focus. His own ambitions resurface. The leverage shifts. Right now, he is completely focused on winning the Champions League with Atletico. But come the end of the season, if that dream is gone, the conversation looks very different. I am not saying he forces a move. I am saying the landscape shifts, and Arsenal need to be ready. Now the parallel track, because this is where Arsenal are being smart. Andrea Berta was in Istanbul last weekend watching Osimhen and reportedly meeting the Galatasaray president directly. Osimhen is a different player to Alvarez entirely. Pure 9, physical, explosive. 20 goals and 7 assists this season. Elite output. But the wages are the problem. 314,000 a week in Turkey. Even more to match in England. Galatasaray wants significantly more than the 75 million they paid last summer. You are looking at a 100 million fee, and potentially the biggest wages in Arsenal's history. Is that the right investment? It depends entirely on what version of striker Arteta needs. If he needs a pure finisher who scores 25 goals without asking much else from the system, Osimhen is your man. If he needs a press leader, a fulcrum, someone who dominates the way Alvarez does, Osimhen is a workaround, not a solution. But here is what Berta in Istanbul actually means. It is leverage. The moment Atletico believe Arsenal have a credible alternative, a real one, the power dynamic in any Alvarez negotiation changes. That is the point of it, and it is smart. One more thing about Alvarez's public comments that I read differently to most. His agent recently shut down reports that Alvarez had started house hunting in Barcelona. And Alvarez himself said he does not pay attention to rumours and is fully focused on winning the Champions League. On the surface, a man settled, not going anywhere. I read it differently. A player with zero interest in leaving does not feel the need to address transfer rumours multiple times. A player completely comfortable at his club does not have his agent making press statements. The fact that both of them have spoken publicly, even to deny things, tells me the speculation is reaching them. It is real to them. And Arteta calling him directly does not leave no impression. That is the Arsenal manager saying, I want you. Come and be the final piece of something special. That conversation stays with you. Here is my actual take. Not a balanced take. My opinion. Arsenal are right to pursue Alvarez. He is exactly the profile Arteta wants. Barcelona closes itself financially. Atletico's stance will be tested by the end of the summer, especially if Tuesday goes Arsenal's way and Alvarez's Champions League dream ends at the Emirates. But my one real worry. Alvarez's camp has signalled they do not want a saga. They want clarity. If Arsenal push too publicly, without putting a real number on the table quickly enough, there is a risk Alvarez decides to stay. Not because he does not want to leave, but because a drawn-out transfer battle is not worth it. That would be Arsenal missing their moment. So if I am Arteta, if I am Berta, I go back to Atletico in June with the actual offer. £130 million on the table. Not signals, not phone calls, the formal bid. Because right now it is all words. The next stage is when the money lands. And if Arsenal come out of this summer with Alvarez, does that make us genuine title contenders next year? Not just top 4, not just semi-finals. Sustained, this is our time contenders? For me, yes, unequivocally. The squad Arteta has built has been missing one specific thing. One player who ties it all together in the way the system demands. Alvarez is that player. He is the piece that turns what Arsenal have from very good into something that could dominate English football for the next 3 years. That is not hype. That is analysis. Tuesday, the Emirates. A place in the Champions League final on the line. And the man who scored against us last night comes back to North London. Go and win it. Go and reach that final. And then, when the season is done, go and sign him. because none of us can stop thinking about him anyway.